All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we are going to peel back the layers on a figure you probably think you know pretty well, King Solomon.
You know, when you hear that name, you probably picture the wise, wealthy king from the Bible, right? But what if I told you that for millions of people, he was also a revered prophet who could talk to animals, or the forefather of a 1,000-year-long empire, or, get this, a master magician who literally commanded demons? Yeah, these aren't just dusty old myths. These are foundational beliefs that have shaped history.
Okay, so let's dive right into that first persona. We're going to look at Solomon, or as he's known in the Islamic tradition, Suleiman, the prophet.
So, in the Quran, Solomon's incredible powers, they're not from some dusty spellbook or dark magic. Not at all. They're seen as divine gifts, direct signs of his deep, deep devotion and God's favor on him. He was a Nabi, which means prophet, and his power came straight from God.
And the scope of these gifts is just wow. I mean, the Quran describes him commanding the wind itself, having full-on conversations with animals and supernatural beings called jinn, and he even enslaved devils, the shayateen, to do massive construction projects for him, using this miraculous spring of molten brass. But here's the key. None of this was for his own ego or wealth. It was all about building and strengthening his righteous kingdom.
There's this one story that perfectly captures his character in Islam. So picture this. Solomon's army is marching along, and they come to a valley full of ants. He overhears one little ant shouting to the others, "Hey, get back in your homes so Solomon's soldiers don't crush you by accident." Now, what does Solomon do? Does he show off his power? Nope. He actually smiles, thanks God for this amazing gift of understanding such a small creature, and makes sure his army avoids the colony. It's all about humility, not raw power.
So this is absolutely crucial. Islam draws a very, very clear line in the sand. The Quran is explicit. Solomon was a faithful servant of God, period. All that stuff about sorcery and dark magic, that's blamed squarely on devils who were trying to slander his name and corrupt his legacy. It had nothing to do with the prophet king himself.
All right, let's shift gears now to our next version of Solomon. And this one, well, it builds a completely different legacy. One that literally became the bedrock of an entire nation, Ethiopia.
So in Ethiopia, the story takes this massive pivot. It's not so much about faith anymore. It's about lineage, it's about nation building, and it's all about royal legitimacy. And this whole story is captured in their national epic, the Kebra Nagast, or the Glory of Kings.
And this is where you see this huge fork in the road for the legend. Okay, so in the Bible and the Quran, the Queen of Sheba, who is called Bilqis in Islam, she visits Solomon, she's blown away by his wisdom, she converts to his faith, and she goes home. End of story. But in the Kebra Nagast, the queen, here named Makeda, is actually seduced by Solomon. So you see the difference? One story ends with a quiet conversion. The other one starts an entire empire.
So according to this epic, that encounter leads to a son, Menelik I. When he grows up, he travels to Jerusalem to meet his dad, King Solomon. But the really wild part is on the journey home. His companions manage to steal the most sacred object in Judaism, the Ark of the Covenant, and bring it back with them to Ethiopia. With the Ark in hand, Menelik becomes the very first emperor, kicking off the Solomonic dynasty.
And this is where it gets real. This wasn't just some old story they told around the fire. It became cold, hard political reality. Around the year 1270, a new emperor came to power by claiming he was a direct descendant of Solomon. That claim was his ticket to the throne. And get this, it was so powerful, so central to their identity, that it was written directly into the Ethiopian constitution in 1955. That idea defined their monarchy right up until it was abolished in 1974.
Okay, so we've gone from a prophet of God to the father of an empire. And now? Now we're going to a master of demons. This might be the most radical transformation of them all, and it comes to us from European occult traditions.
This is where we meet a very different kind of book, the Lesser Key of Solomon. It's what's known as a grimoire, basically a textbook of magic from the 17th century. And this book just completely flips the script on Solomon's power. It argues he wasn't getting help from God. No, he was commanding the supernatural through secret, esoteric knowledge, incredibly complex rituals, and just his own immense force of will.
And here's the kicker. This tradition doesn't just vaguely say, "Oh yeah, Solomon dealt with demons." Not even close. The very first section, called the Ars Goetia, is basically a step-by-step instruction manual. It claims to lay out his exact methods for summoning, binding, and commanding 72 very specific demons that he's said to have trapped in a big brass container.
And the level of detail here is just mind-boggling. I mean, the grimoire gives every single one of those 72 demons a name, a rank, like king, duke, or marquis, a list of their specific powers, and even their own unique symbol or seal. It's like an infernal corporate org chart, and Solomon is the CEO at the very top, calling all the shots.
So let's just step back for a second. We have three completely, radically different versions of Solomon: the prophet, the forefather, and the sorcerer. How is that possible? How do we make sense of this? Why does this one historical figure end up wearing so many different masks?
Well, for Muslims, he became the ultimate example of wisdom and piety, a model king whose incredible power wasn't his own, but a direct reflection of his submission to God.
For Ethiopians, he was something else entirely, a literal forefather. His sacred bloodline was the source of a divine right to rule, the very thing that legitimized a dynasty for almost 1,000 years.
And then, for European occultists, he was the ultimate sorcerer scholar. His secret knowledge wasn't about God or bloodlines. It represented humanity's own potential to grab the reins and command the hidden forces of the universe. And that, right there, is the key takeaway. Solomon's story wasn't just passed down and retold, it was actively grabbed, molded, and reshaped to fit the specific needs and goals of totally different cultures. He became a powerful symbol, and that symbol was customized, to validate their faith, to justify their power, or to empower their search for hidden, forbidden knowledge.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If one person's story can be transformed so completely to fit the needs of the past, which of our own modern-day icons are being reshaped right now to serve the needs of tomorrow? It's a fascinating thought about how we use stories not just to remember the past, but to actively build our future. Something to chew on. Thanks for joining me for this one.